All right, YouTube fam. We are back for another dive into, well, it's not really my diary, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it. I guess I was calling it a diary because that's what Letterboxd called it. But I found a problem with Letterboxd. And I think I mentioned this on the last episode. But, at first I was thinking, I've flip flopped. You may or may not be old enough to remember this, listener, but there was a presidential candidate, John Kerry, when I was in college. When I was I was a poli sci major, so I was like following the elections like really closely. And Kerry, I forget what he did. It was something about his Vietnam service, but anyway, he got branded a flip flopper because on issues. No, it was something with his voting record in Massachusetts. That's what it was. His Vietnam service was a whole nother thing. But yeah, I have been flip flopping back and forth on my channel. I think they actually threw flip flops at him at some event or whatever, but that's neither here nor there. So I have gone back and forth because when I initially started doing this, I was like, I'm gonna do film and prestige TV, and then when I got stuck in the weeds, I was like, I can't do TV and film because it's just too much. But then now I'm backing off of that again because it's like, as a writer and I like to think of myself as a creative person. One thing I've realized more and more is like, I have to consume things, and I think I've mentioned this on the last. That's the whole thing with trying to. My goal this year of trying to keep up with, which I'm failing miserably, trying to keep up with Steven Soderbergh or somebody at his level, who's like constantly reading, constantly watching, movies, television shows, and working, and making them on top of it. So it's just, it's an aspirational thing and something that's fun to me. I think if it ever feels like work, then I'll stop. But I would binge watch series and stuff anyway. And so this is just kind of a way, again, for me to share like the stuff that I really respond to with others. So yeah, so the whole reason I said that was Letterboxd. When I was going through the Letterboxd diary on the last episode, it was fine because we were just talking movies, right? But then, I was talking to a friend and then got really, I don't know why this happens to me sometimes, but like I'll watch an episode of a series and then it's like, well, shit, like now I got to go back. I can't just watch one. It's like those chips, right? It's like the Lays. So it was I watched an episode of House of the Dragon because, the new season's coming up pretty soon, and I'm a huge George R. R. Martin guy. I read all the books. I came to the books late. And sorry, I'm just kind of rambling now, and we're just gonna ramble. It's a smoke sesh type of pod this week. Like I have no outline. I'm just gonna ramble. This one is really more to feed the YouTube gods. So if you want to hang out and smoke a little bit, then that's what we're gonna do. I'm eventually gonna get to Mean Girls and like some of the stuff I watched this week, but which we're talking House of the Dragon. So yeah, huge George R. R. Martin guy. I did come to the books late. My ex sister-in-law, I guess, was a big reader of the books, and she turned me on to the series when it came on HBO. And so I got hooked. Like, I was in from the beginning. First episode, my boy Jamie pushes little brain out the window. The things we do for love. Like, I was in from that point in on, and then I got ahead, of the show because between seasons, I started reading the books. And so finished all those. I never read the Fire and Blood. I did not read those. not from start to finish. It's a little bit. I've picked at it a little bit, like here and there. So very familiar with the world. Um, Not quite maester level or nothing like that, but big fan of the books and the show. The books are actually can be a little bit long-winded for my taste, but I think that was part of George's thing, right? From what I've heard in interviews, is that he did it that way. This part I have my doubts about, to make it unadaptable. You know, I don't know if that's true, like if that's why or whatever. But I have a whole nother thing on that. But all that to say, I think, is House of Dragon as good? Like, if you compare season 1, episode 1 of both shows, I think Game of Thrones is way stronger, right? I mean, it has to be by nature. It's like it's got a more diverse cast. Like, the characters you do have are just so much more like rich. It's not just a room full of like kind of stuffy Targaryens. Not that they're all stuffy. Like, there's good characters in House of the Dragon, and like we're great. Like I love like Patty. The actors and actresses, Patty Considine and Amy Alcock, and all like, it's great. It's a great show. But if you compare them apples to apples, I mean, the original, I think, holds up more. So yeah, so there'll be more stuff to come on House of the Dragon. So there's already a couple of like synopses up if you want to go through and familiarize yourself with. I'm going to try and get all of those done before season 2 starts airing. And I'll probably put them into, once I have all the episode ones done, then we'll do like a major one. And I'll probably do some like character breakdowns, especially for like, who I'm really interested in? I'm just going to put this here. At least I've only rewatched the first 3 episodes, but I have a very different perspective on my rewatch than I did on the first one. The first time I was all into Daemon. I liked Alicent, but I was kind of partial to Rhaenys, which I think is what I don't know if they're trying to push us to that, to like her more, or Rhaenyra. Sorry, not Rhaenys, Rhaenyra. But that's kind of, it seems like that's where they're kind of pushing you. But on a rewatch, I had a lot more sympathy for Alicent and her side of things, so, and I remember really liking her son. I think it's Prince Aemon, the one with the, he ends up with the eye patch. He loses the eye to get the dragon. So cool characters, just different, almost, I mean, same universe, obviously, but not really even a fair comparison. It's almost kind of like punching down from Game of Thrones. Like, just because of the diversity, for me personally, you had Starks, you had everything going on across the narrow sea, you had like the North, it was, and then you had the characters. There's no Jaime Lannister here, really. There's no Tyrion. There's no Arya, Jon. There's nobody really to get behind so far. I mean, there are, but just not at that same level. But it's still a great show. So, also, The Leftovers, I revisited. Can't remember why. Sometimes you just, like, at least for me, I go back to, I don't know, I just get in the mood and be like, oh, I know, I was thinking about Justin Theroux. I know that sounds weird, but yeah, I'm just a big fan. Not more than that, I'm not going to start stalking him. Although now that I'm back in LA, I think I am going to stalk Jason Bateman when baseball season starts, because I know where he sits at Dodgers games. So, but that's neat. We might edit that. Probably won't, because I don't think I'm going to edit this. This is that raw uncut for YouTube. So Yeah, The Leftovers is another one. I kind of realized, like, I think HBO has been a huge influence, at least their shows and series, really their original movies too, have been a really big influence on me. And I think the stuff that I'm working on now. So I thought it was another good series to like share with some people that may not be familiar with it. So they'll be doing synopses on those, some character stuff, character analysis, typing, that kind of thing, because it's fun. It's just fantastic. Like, it's the book only covers. That's one I have. I've also read the book on that there, and it only covers, I think, season 1, and then so seasons 2 and 3 were like, I think Damien Lindelof's, that's the showrunner. I think that was pretty much him. You know, they have a writer's room or whatever, but there was no book to go off of. So really good stuff. Another one of my favorites. So, and then I ended up watching Mean Girls. Oh, here's why I watched Mean Girls, which is amazing, by the way. And okay, here's why I wanted to talk about Mean Girls. So I did this review, or I watched Barbie came out. Oh, and then I'll do another episode. It won't be this one, but I'm gonna do an Oscar. I've been putting together this list of all the Oscar nominees, or not all of them, but like I think it's like a list of like 40 people. It's like directors, actors, production designers, cinematographers. So I've actually seen all of them, but I'm getting distracted. Mean Girls. So I was putting that list together, and also like looking at, there's a new Mean Girls musical out that Tina Fey did. And I also didn't know that Tina Fey wrote the original, which I'm a huge Tina Fey head. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, before I see the musical, I should see the original. I know that I never, I don't know how. Let's see. It came out in 2004, so I was in college. So I just, I don't know. And it was Mean Girls. So if I guess was I married? Yeah, I was married at the time too. So she didn't really care about going to see Mean Girls. She wasn't really into movies, so that one just slipped by the radar. But I saw it a couple days ago, and it is. I see why it's held up so long, and it kind of made something click into place for me with Barbie that I did not understand. Like, I saw Barbie and I was into it, right? Like, I'm a huge Margot Robbie fan. Same with Ryan Gosling, Simu Liu, freaking Shang-Chi, all the whole cast, Kate McKinnon, Greta Gerwig, Noah Baumbach. I'm kind of on. I think he's a great writer, but his stuff's just a little bit dark even for me sometimes. But anyway, but the narrative just didn't make sense to me. Like, I didn't understand the story. I was like, why is Barbie acting like this? Like, why is she like being so mean to Kent? Like, I didn't understand like why there's this elaborate. Oh, I don't shouldn't. I'm not gonna spoil Barbie. Let me just say, like, if you haven't seen it, it's good. Like, it's not. I wouldn't say skip it entirely, but I would just say, like, there was something that just didn't work for me personally in it at the end. But then when I saw Mean Girls, okay, and so I'm going to try not to spoil Mean Girls here too, because if you haven't seen it, like, for sure go rewatch it, or for sure go watch it. And if you have seen it, like, you know, it's one of those that you can probably like keep going back to. So what I didn't understand until I saw, or about what I didn't understand about Barbie until I saw Mean Girls, is that if this is supposed to be a representation of the mind of a young female, a lot of the ways that they deal with their problems in this movie is the opposite of a way a man would deal with his problems. And I guess that's where that when Mars Venus thing comes from is because a man, most times, not all the time, but most times I think, or at least me personally, would be much more direct when they have an issue with somebody, right? Like, you're not going to go through an elaborate scheme, like planning. I mean, it makes for good movie too, right? And good storytelling, but like, I don't know if that movie works if it's a group of guys. Maybe it does. Maybe it exists, and I just can't think of it. But it seemed to click with females, and women. I mean, so to me, that means there's some truth to it and how like the brain works. Because mine, unless I specifically try and think that way, it just doesn't naturally happen. Because if I have an issue with someone, like me personally, I'm just either gonna like avoid that person, like just get out of that situation, like if I don't have to be in it, or if it's something that's unavoidable, like then we're gonna confront it. We're gonna talk about it. So after seeing Mean Girls, I was like, oh shit, now I get it. Like, now Barbie makes sense, and I feel much better about the movie. Like, I'm not as mad. Like, it's weird to say I was butthurt about Barbie, but like, I just wanted to like it so much more. And then when the end rolls around, which I'm not going to spoil it here, but I don't know, it just never sat right with me. Like, but anyway, so loved Mean Girls, loved Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Rachel McAdams, like so many. It's so crazy to see it 20 years ago. Like, so many of them, like they don't hardly look like they've changed at all. Like, I just saw Tina Fey on, was she on Smartless or not Smartless? Maybe she was on Conan or something. I don't know, but she looks great. Amy Poehler, like all of them. Lindsay Lohan kind of dropped off. Don't really know what happened to her, but that's all right. So, what else did we watch this week? Oh, True Detective. All right. Again, Prestige TV, right? So, True Detective season 4. I'm coming to it way late. Oh, I never even loaded a. We're gonna load a bolt right now. So while I talk True Detective, because I'm a huge True Detective fan. Ever since the first one with McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, I know most people hate on the second season with Vince Vaughn and is it Rachel McAdams and who's the other one? Oh, Taylor Kitsch. Sorry, I was taking a little drink. So yeah, even that one that a lot of people didn't really vibe with. I liked seeing the dark Vince Vaughn. Colin Farrell. That was yeah, it was Colin Farrell, Taylor Kitsch, Vince Vaughn, and Rachel McAdams. Like, I liked it. They went for it. I thought it was a really good season. And then the third one, I remember liking it. It just didn't stick with me as much. The one with Mahershala Ali and trying to can't see. I'm blanking on who the other cop was in that one. I remember it being good, like solid season, but it just didn't stick with me as much as like I've gone back and rewatched the first two. And so this one, Jodie Foster comes in. And so what was interesting to me and why I didn't jump on it the first like when it first came out was, one, I was a little bit busy, but also because the series creator, who I'm a big fan of, Nick Pizzolatto, wasn't involved with this one, which I thought was really weird. I thought he owned it, but apparently he. My understanding is that he had like developed it, and then HBO, you know, produced it, to make it. But I assumed he still had like creative control over it. But I guess they own the True Detective name. So because I saw he was like salty about I'm not sure how many seasons in or how many episodes he watched of it, but he wasn't really happy about some of the creative choices that they made. And I was like, okay, well, that's weird. Like, I thought it was your baby, but so they went on without him. But they got Jodie Foster, and they got, who's this? Let's see her name. It's Issa, the director. her name is Issa Lopez. What else did she do? She's a horror director. I know that, but I haven't seen any of her movies. Looking. Actually, I don't even see. Yeah, I've never seen any of these. Which doesn't mean anything. They're Latin, and I guess some of them are horror. Total Mall, yeah, all bad. I don't know if Tigers Are Not Afraid. I have never seen any of these. So a new director, but from what I read, like more of with like a horror tilt, which makes sense if you've seen the first one. If you haven't, it's set in Alaska during the season when there's no sunlight, right? Which reminded me of that vampire movie with Josh Hartnett, 30 Days of Night, which I'll probably do some stuff on around Halloween time, I was thinking, because I love that movie. It's one of my favorite. I don't know if it's really horror. I don't know why I don't really think of vampire movies as horror, but maybe it's because they're kind of like zombies for me and just not really scary, but kind of like a cool mythical creature, like some Lord of the Rings type shit. But yeah, so it's kind of set. So it's even that kind of tone, like very spooky, which is where I think Pizzolatto's frustration comes in. Is like, for him, I think True Detective is about gritty, like tough, flawed people doing hard jobs in impossible situations, and not really, there was no horror aspects for sure to season 2. I remember season 1 being kind of eerie, but I think that was just more of a function of where they were. They were like in the fucking bayou of Louisiana, in the swamps with those, like, I forget what kind of trees those are, the like big hanging ones, and like, I don't know. It's just very creepy, and like what was it? The Yellow King and like all that like the underground sex trading stuff was just really creepy, and so it had a feel, but never supernatural, right? And what I noticed, and this is not a spoiler, this is like the opening scene, but like there's a scene in the very beginning of season 4, episode 1, where these like caribou or some shit, reindeer, it's like a big herd of them jump off a cliff together, like a mass suicide. Which I was like, okay, that's weird. Like, what does that happen? Has that ever happened in the history of life? Because that's the thing, right? Is like, if you do something, you have a mass suicide of reindeer in your opening or in your cold open for your show, like, you're setting the tone, right? So either that shit can happen in real life or it can't. It's not about fictionalizing, right? It's not about storytelling where I'm putting two fake characters in a room and they're having a conversation that never happened. Like, that can still happen within a certain realms, like, that govern this universe, right? But if you have caribou doing mass suicide, I don't think that shit can really happen. I mean, somebody, like, email me, I don't know, leave a comment. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that it can't happen. Well, then you've introduced a supernatural element into a show that has never been supernatural in the past. So you technically broke True Detective, I think. Kind of the same way, like, I think it's the same way on obviously a much smaller scale, but like the problem that people had with The Last Jedi and Rian Johnson taking over. It's just going to be fucking divisive. I'm sorry. Like, I don't like, I'm going to pause for a second. So, I almost forgot what I was talking about. Oh, I was talking about The Last Jedi. So yeah, I don't, when Luke completely does a 180 on everything that we've ever known about him as a character, like, I didn't like that. I didn't want to see him drinking like blue tit milk or whatever, breast milk from those, like whatever. And so I get like Pizzolatto's thing where like you brought something in that like is not really true to the spirit of the show. I think. I mean, yeah, it's still a cop show, but that makes it a supernatural cop show. So I don't know. But at the same time, like if he had just kept his rights to his show, if that's what the thing, like then just like George Lucas, man, you can't be, you sell it off to HBO or whatever, like then it is what it is. Go write the novel. So that was my feeling. But as a show itself, when is Jodie Foster ever not good? Like the director is definitely like she has a vision. Like I'm not super into horror. Like I kind of like elevated horror, which it's not what, if this is a horror show now, like that's not what this is. I mean, this is more like vibe horror, I would call it. But it's still solid. Like it's an entertaining cop show. Jodie Foster as this I think she's like an Alaskan state trooper kind of. There's an Arctic research station, or it's like inside the Arctic Circle, and there's like 6 or 7 scientists, nerds in there, and they all die basically, and they're found frozen together in this like weird state, which is another thing. Like I don't know how that happens. Like, is that supernatural? And then so that's basically it, right? I mean, that's the setup for any cop show. Like there's a murder, we have our cop. The dynamics are what made it interesting for me. Like her being kind of a small town sheriff, but her ex-husband is like works for her and kind of is like pain in her ass. And his son also, which I guess from another marriage maybe, is also a deputy. So like there's that family dynamic, and then there's another side character. I can't even remember her name. Not really that important. I mean, I'm sure she'll figure into it. I'm gonna pull her up. Oh, don't prompt me to rate. Here's her name. Callie Reese plays Evangeline Navarro, who's another cop investigating, I think, the disappearance of her sister, if I remember right, from years and years ago. But it seems like she's lost her job because she probably pushed too hard on that case, because her and Jodie Foster clearly have those two characters have a relationship, but they don't work together anymore. So looks like their investigations, they found, Jodie Foster, when she goes to investigate, she finds a tongue which the other trooper Navarro thinks might be tied to her sister's case. So their paths are definitely gonna cross. So I don't know, 5 more episodes. Like I'll watch it because I like watching Jodie Foster. Unless if it goes too far supernatural, like the thing that I don't like about that is when you have a supernatural cop case, like something that's so dependent on facts, but like when you bring supernatural into it, you can kind of like bend the rules and make your own facts as you go. So it makes it kind of shitty for me personally as a watcher, knowing that, well, like I can't ever solve this. Like I can't solve it because I don't know what the rules are. So it just makes it kind of rough for me. But whatever, we'll watch it. Let's see, and I'm coming up on 30 minutes. This happened last time. So I'll talk about one more thing. Well, actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and end it there because I only started Suncoast. I haven't finished it yet. But that's the one with Nico Parker, who's Joel's daughter in Last of Us. And I think she was also in Dumbo, which I have not seen yet. But so that's going to be the reflections on I'm watching this week. So stay safe out there. I know it's beautiful weather where I am, but I know it's kind of nasty in other places. So stay warm, stay dry. I will put the show's email somewhere, and then I never say like, but comment, subscribe if you haven't already. If you've made it this far, like, thank you. I don't know, what's wrong with you, but thanks for hanging around. And then, yeah, I think I'm going to do another episode. I made a list for Black History Month, which is like just kind of a short list of like I would say like, it's kind of a tough list. They're not historical, but just like either black influence, heavily um, directed by, black cast, whatever, just like heavily black influenced films, and then Oscar noms, because that'll be fun. I like making lists. So appreciate you listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Love you.